Welcome everyone, this is Mrs. Venti. Welcome back to my channel. Today we are doing factorizing trinomials. This is grade 10 mathematics. We're using Platinum Math, exercise 10 on page 20. We're going to do part 2, which is questions 11 up until 20. Let's get started. Question 11 says 2x squared minus 7x plus 5. We are going to factorize our trinomial, right? So the first thing we do is we look at, that's going to be our yellow one, our orange, and our green. Factors of orange are going to be 2 and 1. And our factors for the green one is going to be 1 and 5 or 5 and 1. Now I am going to cross multiply. So what I want to do is I want to say, if I say 2 and 1 plus 1 and 5, and I cross multiply, I'm going to say 2 times 5 gives me 10. 1 times 1 gives me 1. It doesn't matter what my relationship in terms of add and subtract over here is. It can either become 11 or it can become 9, which is not 7. I am looking for 7. So this whole section does not work. Now we're going to repeat the process. I'm going to say 2 and 1 and 5 and 1. Now we're going to cross multiply. So 2 times 1 is 2 and 5 times 1 is 5. If I add those two together, I get 7. But I am looking for minus 7. In order to get minus 7, I need to say minus 5 plus minus 2 gives me minus 7. Now that I know this, I now need to know that this minus sign goes in between there and this minus sign goes in between there. So technically these are my brackets. Those are the numbers that go in my bracket. So the answer to my question is then going to be 2 brackets. My first bracket is going to be 2x minus 5, and my second bracket is going to be x minus 1. That's my final answer. Question 12, 4x squared minus 6x minus 10. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look for a common factor. I know that the number 2 can go into 4, 6, and 10. So if I take 2 out, then I say 2 times 2 equals 4. 2 times 3 equals 6. And 2 times 5 equals 10. Now I am going to look at this term. Factors of 2 are 2 and 1. And I'm going to look at this term. Factors of 5 are 5 and 1 and 1 and 5. Now I cross multiply. So I'm going to say 2, 1, 5, 1. 2 and 1 gives me 2. 5 and 1 gives me 5. If I add them, then I get 7. But if I subtract, I can get 3. 5 minus 2 gives me 3. Okay. However, I want minus 3. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to say negative 5 positive 2 gives me negative 3. Now that I know this, I know that those signs go in the middle. So this minus sign must go in between those two. And this plus sign must go in between those two. Therefore, my answer is going to be, I'll have the 2 over there. I have 2 brackets. In my first bracket, I have 2x minus 5. In my second bracket, I have x plus 1. That is my final answer. Question 13, 4x squared minus 14x plus 12. First things first, look for a common term, or we're going to take out 2. So in our bracket, we are going to have 2x squared minus 7x plus 6. Factors of 2 are going to be 2 and 1. I can repeat it here. And then factors of 6 are going to be 1 and 6, 2 and 3, 3 and 2, 6 and 1. Okay. Now I'm going to cross multiply. So the first thing I'm going to look at is I'm going to look at 2 and 6. 2 times 6 gives me 12, and 1 gives me 1. That's not going to give me 7. That either gives me 13 or it gives me 11. That's not what I want. So that option doesn't work. Next, I'm going to cross multiply 2 and 3. 2 and 3 gives me 6. 1 and 2 gives me 2. So if I add them, I get 8. If I subtract them, I get 4. That's not what I want. So this option is not going to work. 2 and 2 gives me 4. 3 and 1 gives me 3. 4 and 3 definitely give me 7. If I add them up, I want -7, so it's going to be -4, -3. This means that my answer on the top is going to be minus, and my answer at the bottom is going to be minus, and these are my brackets. So my answer is going to be 2, open bracket, 2x minus 3, close bracket, open bracket, x minus 2. That's my answer. Question 14. First, I'm going to look for a common factor. Now, I've got 6, 13, and 6. I know that 13 is a prime number. And because 13 is a prime number, it has no factors other than 1 in itself. So I cannot take out a common factor. Common factor does not exist. So I am going to factorize. So let's start with this 6x squared. Factors of 6x squared is going to be 1 times 6 or 2 times 3 or 3 times 2 or 6 times 1. But in this instance, the first term I only write the different ones only once. Now I'm going to do the factors for this 6, and the factors for that 6 is going to be 1 and 6, 2 and 3, 3 and 2, 6 and 1. 1 and 6, 2 and 3, 3 and 2, 6 and 1. All right, now let's cross multiply. So let's start on the first one. 1 and 6 gives me 6. 1 and 6 gives me 6. Add them up, I get 12. I want 13. So that's not going to work. Can remove that. 1 and 3 gives me 3. 6 and 2 gives me 12. 12 and 3. If I add them, I get 15. Or if I subtract 12 minus 3, I get 9. So that is not what I want. So this is not the right option. Let's multiply those. 1 times 2 is 2. 3 times 6 is 18. 18 minus 2 is 16. 18 plus 2 is 20. That is not what I want. So I'm going to remove that. 6 and 1 and 1 is 1. 6 and 6 is 36. Way off, not 13. So that's not going to work. So now I know that my first set is definitely not going to work. Okay, let's try our second set. 2 times 6 is 12. 3 times 1 is 3. If I add them up, I get 15. If I subtract them, I get 9. That's not going to work. 2 times 3 is 6. 3 times 2 is 6. Add them up, we get 12. So that's not going to work. 2 times 2 is 4. 3 times 3 is 9. So if I add them up, I get 13. Finally, we found the one that we want. I want to have minus 13, which means that it must be minus 9 and minus 4. That means that that's going to be a minus and that's going to be a minus. Those are my two brackets. And I can actually put my x's there. So my answer is going to be 2x and 3x. And the other term is going to be minus 3 and minus 2. And these are my brackets. That's your final answer. 6a squared minus ab minus 15. So we cannot factorize. It's as simple as it gets. Factorize 6a squared. So 6 is going to be 6 times 1 or 2 times 3. Factors of 15 are going to be 1 and 15. 3 times 5. 5 times 3. 15 times 1 and 15. 3 times 5. 5 times 3. 15 and 1. Okay, now we're going to cross multiply and see what we get. 6 times 15 is 90. and 1. That is nowhere near the one that we want. Way too big, right? What I'm going to do instead, because I want a number that is small, I am instead going to take the small terms here, and I'm going to go to the middle over here and see what we can get from there. Okay, so let's start with that. If I say 2 times 5, that gives me 10, and 3 times 3, that gives me 9. 10 minus 9 gives me 1. That is what I want. All right, so how do I get minus 1? I'm going to say minus 10 plus 9 gives me minus 1. So my answer here in my bracket is going to be minus and plus, and those are x's. So those are my two brackets, like that. So my answer is going to be 2x minus 3, 3x plus 5. Question 16. First thing we're going to do is take out a common factor. So I've got 4, 14, 12. Those are all even numbers. I'm going to take 2 out. So that means I have 2a squared minus 7ab plus 6b squared. Now what's new in this one is, remember in the past we had a square number over there, a square variable. Now we have a square variable there. This isn't going to change anything, okay? Because what we have here is we've got the b there and we've got the a there. So everything's going to be fine. Let's factorize. The factors of 2a squared is going to be 2a multiplied by 1a. Okay. The factors of 6b squared is going to be 1b times 6b. It's going to be 2b times 3b. It's going to be 3b times 2b. And it's going to be, we're missing 1, which is going to be 6b times 1b. Now let's cross multiply. We are looking for 7. So my hint to you is to go to the middle. We've got 2 on the side, 2 on the side. So go to the middle and start there and move outwards. So let's start with 2b and 3b. If I multiply 2a with 3b, so if I multiply 2a with 3b, I am going to have 6ab. Great. Now, if I multiply 1a with 1b, I am going to have 1ab. If I add them up, I can either have 7ab, or if I subtract them, I can have 5ab. 7ab is exactly what I want. And I want a negative. So this becomes negative and negative. Minus 6 minus 1 gives me minus 7. Really, really easy. That makes sense. So that means that this is going to be my two brackets. Now I've got minus on the top and I've got minus on the bottom. So my answer is going to end up being 2 times 2a minus 2b times a minus 3b. And that's your final answer. Question 17, we are going to factorize. So the common factor we're going to take out is 5. And what we're left with is 5 times 9 gives me 45, k squared. Then 5 times 3 gives me 15k. And 5 times 20 gives me 100. All right, so now that we've got that, we need to check what are the terms for 9. So 9 is going to be 9 times 1, and it's going to be 3 times 3. The common terms factors for 20 is going to be 1 and 20, 2 and 10, 4 and 5, 5 and 4, 10 and 2, 20 and 1. All right, so we're going to repeat that at the bottom. Okay, so now we want to get the one that we are looking for is 3. We are trying to make, again, remember my hint was go to the middle, go to the center of both. So these two are closest to each other and these are closest to each other. So let's start with 3 and 3 and 4 and 5. I multiply that, I get 15. If I multiply that, I get 12. So what's the difference between 12 and 15? 15 minus 12 gives me 3. That's what I want. But I want minus 3. So it's going to be minus 15 plus 12 gives me minus 3. Therefore, my signs are going to go plus there and minus there. So this becomes 3k plus 4 and 3k minus 5. And that, my folks, is my final answer. Question 18. 4p squared minus 4p plus 1. There is no common factor, so I'm not taking out a common factor. Instead, I am going to factorize 4p squared. 4p squared is going to be 4 and 1, 2 and 2. And then the factors of 1 is going to be 1 and 1 and 1. So now, how do we get 4? We are going to say 4 times 1 is 4, 1 times 1 is 1. So if I add and subtract, I either get 5 or 3. 2 and 1 is 2, 2 and 1 is 2. If I add them up, I get 4. That's brilliant. I want minus 4. So minus 2 gives me minus 4. My bracket ends up being 2p minus 1 multiplied by 2p minus 1. That's your final answer. Next question. 18p squared minus 12pr plus 2r squared. So what we're going to do here is, first we're going to take out the common factor. So let's take out 2. And our remainder is going to be 9p squared minus 6pr plus r squared. Now we're going to factorize. Factors of 9 are going to be 9 and 1, 3 and 3. Factors of 1 is going to be 1 and 1, 1 and 1. So we can say, put the variables there just to make it easier, because again we've got 2 variables. I want you to see how we get the 2 variables. So this one becomes p. So let's have a look. If I say 9 times 1 gives me 9, 1 times 1 gives me 1. If I add them up, it's either going to be 10 added up or 8 subtracted. That's not going to work for me. 3 and 1 gives me 3 pr. 3 times 1 gives me 3 pr. If I add them up, I get 3 and 3 is 6 pr. That's what I want. I want minus 6, so that's going to be minus 3 is minus 6. So that means that minus in there, those are my brackets. My answer is going to be 2, that's that one, multiplied by 3p minus 1 r, 3p minus 1 r. That's my final answer. Last question. 18x squared minus 5x minus 2. We do not have any common factor, so we cannot factorize a common factor. Factors of 18 is going to be 18 and 1. It's going to be 9 and 2. And it's going to be 3 times 6. Factors of 2 is going to be 1 and 2, 2 and 1, 1 and 2, 2 and 1, 1 and 2, 2 and 1. So we've got 3 sets. This is our first set, our second set, and our third set. And the sets are determined by our first term, right? Which one would logically be the best place to start? Because we're looking for 5, and 5 is a small number, I would start with the last one, where I've got a small variance between the factors of the orange one, and then we can look at the middle. So the middle here, basically they both qualify. So let's look at the third set. If I say 3 times 2 gives me 6, and 6 times 1 gives me 6. If I add them, I get 12. If I subtract them, I get 0. So that's not going to work. If I say 3 times 1 gives me 3. 6 times 2 gives me 12. That is very far from 5. So that is either going to be 15 or 9. That's not what I want. Okay, let's try the next one. 9 times 2 is 18. 2 times 1 is 2. 18 plus 2 is 20, or subtracted is 16. That's not it. 9 times 1 is 9. 2 times 2 is 4. 9 plus 4 is 13. 9 minus 4 is 5. Ding, ding, ding. That's what I want. So I am looking for minus 5 and minus 2. So minus 5. If I say minus 9 plus 4 gives me minus 5, that is correct. And that's going to be my answer. I'm going to have a plus over here because that one goes there. I'm going to have a minus over here because that one goes there. So these are my brackets. My answer is going to be 9x to the power of 1 plus 2, 2x minus 1. And that's your final answer. I sincerely hope that this made sense to you. Please like and subscribe so you can get notifications for any future videos. And if you have any questions, please ask me in class. Thank you. Bye-bye.